Hello, hello. Welcome to Fight the Funk podcast. I'm your host, Maagic Collins, and we are exploring mental health, culture, and the world around us. And today we got Ibrahim Abugash, and he is the CEO of Generation Pros. So happy to have him. Welcome, man. Welcome to Fight the Funk podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. How are you? How's everything?
Good, man. I'm sleeping. I'm sitting on the floor, so I'm trying to get comfortable right now. I'm gonna be shifting a little bit, but good, man. Good.
Well, I
So
hope you're comfortable. I hope you're
yeah,
comfortable up there.
yeah, man. Yeah. So I'm actually one of the. You're not only a guest, but I'm also a client
Yes.
for your services, man. So can you tell us a little bit about Generation Pros?
Yeah, definitely, man. So basically, I've basically grown up my whole life in San Bruno, California, which is basically the headquarters of YouTube. And coming out of college, I got a lot of experience in digital marketing, and I realized, hey, why don't we do something in between digital marketing and kind of where I'm from, which is the headquarters of YouTube. So kind of put those two things together. And what we've kind of been able to come up with is a great formula where we're able to accomplish the three phases of YouTube today, which is creating video content and editing video content, as well as help people optimize their channels in the right way to make sure that their videos are ranking appropriately on YouTube and driving sufficient traffic. And then the last thing is YouTube ads, right? Managing YouTube ads and really driving traffic that way as well. So that's basically Generation Pros in a nutshell. YouTube specialty.
Nice. Now, did you so you grew up in San Bruno? Did you every time? Did you walk past or drive by YouTube and you was just longing?
Well, yeah, man. You'd be surprised. Like YouTube, there's so many people that live in San Bruno that their parents work for YouTube, that that they even end up working at YouTube. And I have a lot of friends that they work in a lot of different departments in YouTube itself from very very young age. So it's just kind of seeing a lot of their experiences, and me even back in the day, I was like, oh, maybe I want to work for them one day, right? But kind of incorporating that aspect together in my experience, that was the best way to go. So it's pretty unique. It's pretty interesting.
Nice. And then do you so having so many ties with YouTube, does Generation Pros have any kind of do you talk to some of the people that work there and that they know Generation Pros are doing their thing with YouTube?
Yeah, 100%, man. I mean, the fact of the matter is we are a new company at the end of the day. We're coming up on our 1 year mark soon. And, the fact that we've been able to be a thought leader in the industry because we're truly attacking the industry in a different way than a lot of people are doing. We're definitely, our name is growing slowly but surely, I would say. For sure. And I think the cool thing is about Generation Pros is that, there's a lot of marketing agencies out there that, they do all sorts of different services like SEO for your website, video production. They do everything else other than YouTube, right? So we've been able to be kind of that white label partner to a lot of different marketing agencies. And so that we can actually come in and help them with their YouTube channels. And that's kind of been a big notice for us as well. So. Yeah.
Nice, man. Nice. And then what is we've had this conversation a bit. So you're first generation, right? You're Palestinian?
Yes.
So what has that been like being in America, in those experiences with your family? Because they moved to America, right?
Yes, 100%.
So what?
Yeah, I'd love to expand on that. I think with every minority in America, there's always something that they've experienced, right? And I think one of the biggest aspects is yes, because at the end of the day, America is a melting pot, and anywhere you go, there's ever a mix of cultures, right? There's always going to be some sort of clash, right? And that's the ultimate end kind of thought that I have on it, right? Yes, it may have there may have been some experiences that weren't the best experiences. They could have been more pleasure, but that's ultimately, you know, what I would say about that at the end of the day. Is like, hey, you know, whether you're Asian, whether you're Black, whether you're from Europe somewhere, right? First generation, period, right? You know, there's always going to be some sort of thing, right? So yes, for sure. I mean, for example, my name, right? It's a hard name to go by, right? When people are reading it there, right? They're saying Ibrahim, right? And they're kind of having a little bit of my last name is a little bit off, right? Not off, but you know, not kind of not in the norm, right? In the United States, right? But you know, I usually just go by Abe, like, because at the end of the day, you know, my name is Abraham in English, right? But it's just Ibrahim in Arabic, so usually just go by Abe. But you know, overall, living in America as a Muslim Palestinian, right? There's kind of like these two aspects where, you know, I am a minority when it comes to religion, right? And as well as a minority when it comes to ethnicity as well, right? So there's a lot of Palestinians out that are Christian, right? Where you know, they are celebrating all the same holidays, like they're kind of in that same wave, but kind of both aspects, right? Which is actually the majority of Palestinians are actually Muslim. There's a little bit of a two-sided thing there, right? But at the end of the day, it's all great experiences, right? It's all growing experiences, and you know, it's just interesting how everybody deals with their certain stigmas and so on and so forth, you know.
Yeah. Now I would say you said all great experiences, because I would say there's a balance to reality as well, because it's not, you know, it's not all great, but it's you still can enjoy your life.
Yes.
And I think that's part of it, where it's like, even like yesterday, I was at a protest, but we're still laughing, we're still enjoying life, even within the protest. Like, so it's like knowing what needs to change and knowing what you're working for. There still has to be that joy, because we are privileged just to be breathing, just be on earth. We're still privileged, and just to be able to work for change is a privilege as well. So now, how does your company kind of tie into that greater purpose?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, with all, like, I think one of the coolest things about us is we have people that work with us all throughout the world, right? So yes, even though I may be Palestinian, right, and you know, I wanna work. I want to have people on my team that are Palestinian, or even you know, but I'm never like that, right? You know, even though there's times where, like, you know, people in Palestine, they're starving, right? They're not being treated well. I want to give some of them jobs, right? I think one of the biggest things for me personally is there's people starving all over the world, right? There's people that are in need of jobs all over the world, right? And I think for me, a personal thing is, yes, even though we do have a few guys working in the Middle East, right, not necessarily in Palestine itself or the surrounding, but in surrounding areas, we also have people that are working, you know, in South America, right? And we have people working with us in Pakistan and India, and as well as the United States. So, you know, I think that's one of the biggest things here is kind of being that company culture that invites all ethnicities, right, and all genders, as well, right? So I think that's kind of the biggest thing that we're really focused on, and also our client base, I would say as well too. I mean, you know, we have client base of all different types of ethnicities, at Generation Pros, and even you know, there's a few other countries where we actually do business in as well, right? So, you know, we're coming to work every single day and seeing that, you know, that's where, you know, that voice for change really comes in, right? If you take a look at a lot of companies, there's maybe not a lot, but there's some, right, out there that, you know, their corporate C-level executives are all white males, right? Basically at the end of the day, plain and simple. And, you know, at the end of the day, there's companies that are realizing that, like Google, right? There's a person as a CEO who was born in India, right? And there's a lot of different companies that are having women as their CEOs now, as head figures in their companies. And, you know, we want to be that type of company at the end of the day, right? And we want to have that message because that's what we believe in. So yeah.
That's like I was part of a business organization, and that's what the leader would always stress is you want to have people from different backgrounds, because when you have that, you're able to find solutions.
Yes.
And it's like, so you do need, it's not about just song and dance. Like we got diversity. It's like, no, man, it's like you have diverse groups, they can find solutions to hard problems.
100%. And like, I mean, because these groups are from different places of the world, right? And if you really think about it, even though, you know, somebody from your same region, right, they might have the same, if not very similar, thinking to you. But if you're able to get all these different opinions, 2 minds, 3 minds, 4 minds is always greater than 1, as long as there's not a million minds and you don't know who to get, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, as long as you have a good kind of team there from different backgrounds and a good board, right? I think that's kind of the best way. And you know, that's how we've been able to come and make sure that we're, you know, implementing diversity in our own culture as well, right? So
yeah. And I like that you said that, because there's even within culture, there's a range, right?
Yeah.
Like not everybody's not one homogenized group. It's like there's a range of personalities, experiences. So there's diversity even within the culture. So I'm glad you pointed that out. Now what with that, like with your passion and everything you're working on, what's been like the challenges for you?
Yeah, 100%. You know, I think it's the challenges of any new company at the end of the day, right? And also, you know, the challenges of being an entrepreneur for the first time. You know, those are at a young age. You know, I actually started Generation Pros at 23 years old, and you know, just turned 24 a few months ago. So, you know, I think that's kind of one of the two biggest things. Is also, you know, hey, you know, gathering the experiences that I had and bringing this all to a company, which is, you know, been growing tremendously. But also, you know, that fact of like being a new company and driving, you know, momentum in that aspect, right? I wouldn't say it's like it hasn't been something that we're doing, right? But it's just kind of always finding those, you know, what are the best ways to tweak this, to tweak that? What could we do? What could we be doing better at the end of the day, right? So, you know, there was a lot of manual things that would be like, hey, you know, we do a lot of video production. So, you know, there's a whole aspect of us editing videos, right? And sending it to clients and so on and so forth. We've actually developed a real cool dashboard where it actually automates that whole process. And after we post the videos for them, that notifies them via email, and they're actually able to check how their videos are ranking on YouTube, which has, you know, never been seen before on an agency reporting dashboard. So we've actually been able to go ahead and automate a lot of those processes that are a lot of manual work. So I would say that's the main thing.
And then what is your what's the Generation Pros website?
Generationpros.io.
Oh, okay. .io. I'm gonna put that up on the. So one thing I have on here is we can put that up on the banner, so you can see it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So for people listening, it's you can check out generationpros.io.
Yes.
So check that out. And then what's like, so how's being a CEO, like where you still having time to dance and two-step and get out there and live a life? Like what's going on?
Well, I mean, man, honestly, I think I've actually been working very slightly less than my last few jobs. My last job, I was working around like 70 hours a week, cold calling people in America 9 to 5, and then from 6 to 9 o'clock at night, cold calling people in Australia. Ooh. So that was I was working more than 70 hours every week at my last job. Here, I would say around 50. I'm doing around 50 hours, you know, but a little overtime. But, you know, in regards to kind of how busy, I would say a little bit less, honestly.
That's interesting. Like,
yeah.
It itself is like you're actually taking care of yourself better, and it's something that you're passionate in.
I mean, honestly, I was passionate about both positions.
Okay.
I was really passionate about both positions. I think it's just the job's type itself, right? Kind of having more control over, your revenue, right? And how much, in your relationships, you're having more control over your relationships as well, that you're building. Because basically in a sales role at a big company, it's like, hey, you close somebody, they become a customer of the companies, and then, you basically never talk to them again. Right. But, there's a whole aspect when it comes to the business as a whole where it's like, oh, now it's not only, I'm the sales guy, but, now we also have to make sure that these, people, that we're kind of following through on our part. Right.
Yeah.
I think I like that aspect more of kind of the overall kind of, overlooking both aspects, right? Of sales, and marketing, customer service.
And you find it like because I feel like with this business is an ongoing relationship.
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
and I think when we first started the company I used to work for before, the minimum monthly payment it's a month. Their minimum contract is a year, right? So you can't do business with them unless it was for a year, and I believe it was more than $3,000 a month, right? So those are the typical enterprise deals, and that was basically my job to cold call for these companies, these enterprise level companies, right? Because no average company pays that much for digital marketing software, right? So that was basically kind of my whole thing there. Yeah. So it's different for sure.
yeah, that makes sense. Now,
but to answer your question there, Magic, my apologies. Is the whole thing of the ongoing relationship is the whole business model is different, right? When we're working on YouTube, it's generally for people that are posting on YouTube that continuously, understand that they need to post to YouTube to, drive thought leadership and to make sure that their channel looks consistent, right? And generally, our return rate basically on those people that are coming back, it's over 95%, which is crazy because, and we don't even need to have contracts with people because once people see, hey, these videos are ranking properly, I'm driving traffic on my channel, I'm continuously posting. At the end of the day, just, we are kind of that helping hand, right? Instead of kind of hiring somebody to help you, kind of that help, right? So that's kind of the business model. So yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's like a great support system.
Exactly.
As you're doing the work, you guys created a great support system for your clients.
100%. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of companies out there that where, they just say, hey, here, pay us this certain amount of money every month. We'll catch you next month, or we'll probably not catch you at all, right? We're actually, we have bi-weekly sync ups, and we're kind of checking up on you guys. We're seeing exactly like, hey, what's going on your channel. Is there any special requests, and so on and so forth, right? They're not like meetings where we're not consultants at the end of the day, right? We're not going through everything. We're an agency, right? But it's good to have checkups, right, and kind of see how everything is and so on and so forth. So I think that's a really cool thing about Generation.
Yeah. Okay. Nice, man. Nice. And then, so are you, as you expand, are you going to travel more to these different locations and see people? It's like it's an opportunity to travel.
Well, when I first left my position, my last position, I did a little bit of traveling, but I did a little bit of traveling. Not too long ago, but I'm not a big travel guy. I would say I think a lot of people they do this so so they can be anywhere. They become their own, be anywhere and just kind of have everything set. I honestly, the reason why is so that how much can I grow myself and my career, right? That's kind of like I'm kind of going full scale, right, on this. So that's kind of the thing where I'll always just be stuck. What I do. Like people will say, oh, I'm gonna start my own company to travel more. I'm like, man, I'm traveling the same.
Exactly. That makes sense. Now what kind of any kind of hilarious stories as far as, because there's so much learning and so much like run into issues or just learning experiences where you fall on your face and you're like
well, yeah, man, for sure. I mean, it's crazy because before this, I was in the world of sales, right? And I think sales is once you go through that, there's nothing more crazy that you could see You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Like in my last position, I've seen the craziest things where people said, "Hey, we're gonna sign on a contract, right?" And they're about to sign, and you already somebody they already counted it as like a sale, right? They're about to go through, and then the last second, somebody says no, right? And then it all falls apart, right? I think that's kind of something. I think that I've kind of seen on both, on both Generation Pros, my last position, right? But I think a big thing about what I've seen so far on the customer success side, right, is just how much there is good companies out there like to do the work for you.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a small amount of customers where you either one can't please no matter what you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or number two, no matter how much they pay you, it's not worth for you or for your team to take them on as a client, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think those are the two most important things here, right? Is for you to go in and put as much effort and time, you have to do your part. That's 100%, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's also understanding the aspects is, there's always going to be people out there. No matter if you have the best service, the best technology, they're going to be like, hey, this is not, there's just something that either they can't, they're not pleased by that, or there's nothing you can do to please them, right? There's always something, right? So I think that's one of the biggest things. And then also just as much as there's a respect aspect, I think this is one of the biggest things I learned as well, is just as much as there's a respect aspect for as a business to a client, right? I think there should always be that same respect from the client to the customer, right? We've dealt with a few people, right, where they took it as a relationship where it was like, oh, you work for me, right? And they're just kind of like literally bullying my guys around, right? And I'm like, hey man. And there was only one time.
Okay.
But there was literally only one time. But it's interesting that I had to do this, right? And there's always times. I've talked to so many people that have done this many times in their careers, right? Where they literally go to the client and they're like, "Hey, your renewal's coming up, but my guys don't want to deal with you, so we'll catch you." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
So I've had to do that, but because it gets to that point sometimes. But I think that's pretty interesting experience that I've kind of seen.
Yeah. Like, and that's the thing with, I feel like one of the things I've always said is everybody should have to work in customer service.
Yes.
It's like just to get that experience. Like I remember I worked at Trader Joe's and just having a lady come in and complaining about how many slices of bread was in her loaf. And she counted 12 and it's supposed to be 13. And we're like, what? Like, okay, it's weight, like it's weight.
Yeah.
But it's like little things like that where I feel like people should have, experience the demands of the general public, and knowing like you can't please everybody. And it's you have to have some kind of barriers where you do your best and you try to and you be of service, but you also have to take care of yourself and your team as well. Yeah. So you feel like as a CEO and it's your company, do you feel kind of like the in some ways like the father figure, like you're trying, even though you're 24?
Man, like it's crazy because even on the employee side, right? There's you guys where I'll start working with, right? And they'll be like, what? Like they'll ask me for my birthday because like to sign up for something, right? Under my name, to help me out or something, and then they'll be like, what? 1997? That's your birthday? No way. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they see all these different guys in my Slack group that we're doing all this work with, and I mean, we have around right now, we have around 15 people all together on the team, right? So, they kind of, I'm very blessed, I would say, to, have been able to have a great experience outside of college and to incorporate that into my own company. I think is just something where I have to keep on pushing, right? Because who knows, is like if I have to do the best that I can, because for me personally, there's no other option, right? Yeah. I go into my position, and people who are like me, right, who come out of college, they go into a sales job, they're successful in that first sales job. They're usually salespeople for life, and they're making great money doing so. There was account executives at my last position that would make $50,000 off of one deal, right? So, and basically that's, so, I think it's the aspect of, okay, I like the consistency rather than like, oh, am I going to have a good month here? Am I having a good month here? Right. Just consistently growing, I think, and then kind of having that where, this is all my work altogether. Right. With all the help of these great people. So, I think that's the really, really kind of cool aspect there. So that's kind of when the, I think it's, even though I'm one of those that are doing it from a young age, I think by the time I'm, 30, right? I think by the time I'm that age, 5-6 years, right, and I continue pushing the way I am, I think that anything is possible, So
yeah. Is there a kind of a leadership style or mentors that you really enjoy, like how they work with people?
I like, if I were to take a look at it from there's mentors, there's like role models that I take from my own clients, with all honesty, right? Like, for example, one of my like, there's a client that's been with us for one of the longest times, right? And she's in cybersecurity, right? And she was telling me how she developed her dashboard, right? For her cybersecurity clients, and that inspired me to have a dashboard for us, right? I think that's one of the cool things, is that I get inspired from people that I work with. It's really interesting, and that's, I think, but like the people that I don't work with, right, are those that like I've tried to work with before, right? That were really like kind of like, I've noticed there's a lot of companies that we sign up for to work with, right? That we worked with in the past, or companies that are thinking of even working with us, right? In that process, I even noticed that like a lot of their processes for keeping clients, right, and keeping customers happy is a lot different, right? There's so many clients, there's so many people out there where they're just like, hey, businesses out there where they're just like, hey, pay us the subscription, we'll see you next month. You can't really see anything. What's going on? I'm so against that model, right?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And what, like, have you had? Because I've noticed some leaders like have to adjust. Like they go in one way, like I got to be like this and stern and tell everything has to be perfect. And then as they go, they're like, oh, I can't really. Okay, let me delegate more. Have you gone through that experience?
100%, man. And like, what I realized is, if you're not on top of people, especially people that work for you, right, and you're not like setting deadlines and tasks on a consistent basis, right, and you're paying these people salary at the end of the day, you have to, make sure that you're very, very stern with them at the end of the day. Like, hey, not mean anyway, right? Or, I always say please. I always say thank you. I always say, if you can, right? But like, just know, like, hey, at the end of the day, money is coming out of our pockets, right, to pay you. And, we have to make sure that, it's for the right reasons, right, at the end of the day. So, and I've noticed that when we don't do this, which, yes, so the answer to your question is yes, right? I was stern, and then I kind of went away, and, because I was focusing on sales. But I noticed is we weren't being as stern with people, and kind of the work was kind of getting delayed, right? So I think it's good. I think there has to be a mix, right? Stern, and that's what I think.
Okay. Nice, man. Nice. And then now, are you like an avid reader? Like, what is the mind of a CEO who does digital marketing? Like, what kind of material do you read?
Well, I actually, I'm not a big reader, honestly, with all honesty, but I'm a big documentary guy, with all honesty. And I love attending different types of, virtual events, and kind of, networking in that way. But, it's crazy because I literally just sit there for hours watching different tutorials, watching different videos, different documentaries about different topics, like about digital marketing, and of course different about like politics, and all these different types of topics. But when it comes to digital marketing, like, I think a big aspect of kind of why I wanted to do this is, it is my passion at the end of the day. I was literally, going and doing all this different types of research and work, on my off days, right? And literally noticing this was kind of, coming in my personal life as well. And this is what I liked, right? So, that's, less of a reader, more of like a video, right? YouTube guy.
That makes sense. Hey, that it ties all together, man. It's
exactly. People go to YouTube to learn, right?
There you go. There you go.
And with all honesty, this whole kind of like I would say, even like from kind of like my younger brother's age, which is he's like 10 years younger than me. Like I'd say from that generation, I'd say even people, like and like people that from that age, like they're more into video. I mean, think about it. They're always on Instagram. They're always on, they're always on YouTube. They're always on Facebook, right? They're constantly kind of submerged in photos and videos, right? And so, I think video itself, which is also a great reason, right? This trend is also on an upwards trajectory as well, right? People are going more towards YouTube, more towards video as the generation gears them to do so, right? So
now what that kind of brings me to mental health. Like, how do you maintain your healthy mindset and maintain your mental health?
Yeah, 100%. That's a great question, man. I think at my there's been times in my career, right, whether it was my last position or even my position before when I was at B2B account manager at Verizon. I think it was the whole aspect of there is that overworked feature, right? Whether you love what you do or whether you don't. Think, so for some people, I think it's non-existent. With all honesty, I think there are people out there that are just so crazy. Maybe not crazy, but like just kind of to that point where, they love it so much that they can literally do it anywhere and anytime, right? But for me, I always have to find that balance, right? No matter how much I like my job and what I do, my passion, I always have to find that time to get out, to get away. I mean, personally, I did Taekwondo for 9 years and was even in the Olympic trials. And I did wrestling for high school and throughout my first 2 years of college. So I've always been really, really active. So I love to go, exercising. I like to go running. My younger brother is actually just starting wrestling in high school, and I've been training a lot with him, getting him ready. So, I feel like there's always that aspect you have to have in mind, no matter what.
Wait a minute, man. Wait, hold up. I didn't know you were doing Taekwondo and what? Olympic trials. Wait, you holding out, man. What's going on? So now we getting into the activities, man.
Oh yeah.
The behind the scenes.
It was a while ago for the kind of the Olympics.
So, how did you get in position for Olympic trials? Like that's interesting.
Yeah, so basically I won like this big tournament at UC Berkeley for Taekwondo. And basically, I was set to try out with all these different people, all these great people from the United States, and so on and so forth. Long story short, never competed in the Olympic trials because I basically went through a horrible shoulder injury. So I was not able to do so. And I got actually, because basically I just finished Taekwondo, and then I had the last kind of tournament for wrestling for my second year in college. So basically, was not able. So that happened from that tournament, right? So that was the end of my kind of whole kind of rise. But but now I'm very thankful with everything, no matter what journey. It's also a journey at the end.
Yeah. Now, are you still able to practice now?
So yes, I practice all the time, 100%. I practice all the time. We're always helping out my brother, at the end of the day. And, my cut, I'm not directly related to this individual. But he actually has my last name, and he's the only Jordanian or Palestinian to ever win a gold medal in the Olympics as well. So, Taekwondo's been very kind of big in my village as well, in my town. In Jerusalem. So yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. So Taekwondo is practiced in your village?
Yeah, 100%. It's I think it's one of the biggest sports, I would say. After soccer, mixed martial, I'd say mixed, a variety of different martial arts like judo, karate, taekwondo. Those are big in the region for sure. But now that we had the last name as the gold medalists, we're kind of known as like, oh, these guys are you don't want to mess with these guys,
Yeah. What and what town, like, so like can you break that down, like, for somebody that hasn't visited? And and some family, where your family is from?
100%, man. So I mean, whenever, it's interesting because, right, I'll say, hey guys, I'm Palestinian, right? My name is Ibrahim Abugash, Palestinian, right? But if you go to Abu Ghosh today and you look on the map, right, it's there, right? Literally, my last name is on the map next to Jerusalem. So you go there today, you see that this map is in Israel, right? That this specific town is in Israel, right? Not in the Palestinian territories, right? Not in the West Bank, not in the Gaza Strip, right? But literally with.
All right, we have lost Ibrahim. We will. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Okay, sorry about that, man.
No worries. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Long time you see. So this town is in Israel, right? So basically, what happened is and it's interesting to say from to just explain to people, to regular Americans that have been here their whole life, who are not familiar with the region, like, oh, what do you mean you're a Palestinian, right? Isn't like, what do you mean you're from Jerusalem? You're Palestinian, right? Like, isn't that Israel, right? It's kind of interesting to kind of hear their reactions when I say, hey, I'm Palestinian, right? And there's some people that would be like, oh, like, don't you mean Israel, right? And then there's some people that are like, oh, okay, that's cool. They're not really. And then there's some people like, oh, don't you mean you're Palestinian? Oh, great. Oh, nice. I know what that is, right? So I get a mix of reactions, right? Obviously, those that are like saying like, oh, that's in Israel, right? Oh, you're Israeli. Those people are usually like very strongly opinionated about the subject, right? Like, for example, we were walking, my friend and I, and he has my friend has a pendant, right? Which is basically, if you look to Google today, the map of Israel, right? But we basically hold this kind of it's a pendant that like kind of just shows like the that map, but it has Palestine written on it, right? Because Palestinians, we believe at the end of the day, the majority of us, right, is that that basically this is our land, right? This is the whole conflict, right? That they came to our land, and this is kind of our land before they came, right? So we always just kind of hold true to that, right? Whether it's on a map or not. And this guy literally held it and was like, oh, nice map of Israel, right? Kind of when he's walking, he was like, okay, you're cool, So you get a few mixes. But to go back is from West Jerusalem, right? So when kind of there's kind of the whole war in 1947, where after World War II, Britain basically gave the decision of whether or not the British mandate, which is what you see today in the Palestinian area, what would be divided amongst Arabs, right, and what would be divided amongst kind of Jews, right? And before kind of that happened, right? There was the Holocaust happened, right? There's a lot of things that were going on in Jewish history that made that pushed a lot of Jewish big time Jewish leaders in governmental parties to push for land specifically for them, right? Now there was a lot of speculations like, hey, there was actually talks of them going to Uganda first. And because that's what they say the birth of Judaism is, Uganda. So that's where they are actually talking about first. But then they decided, hey, no, we're always talking about Jerusalem. They're always praying to Jerusalem. So let's go and there's always that aspect in Jewish history where Jerusalem was Jewish, right? It was all Jewish in around 2,000 years ago, and then the Romans, they were expelled by the Romans, and that's kind of when how this how Jews kind of went throughout Europe, throughout the world, and so on and so forth, right? But even when that was there was always Arabs, right? There was always these people called Canaanites, right? and these people were living side by side, the Hebrews, right?
Yeah.
And if they were called the Philistines, right? Now the Philistines were living in modern day Gaza, which a lot of people are arguing big reason why Israel leaves Gaza the way it is, because that's kind of how it was in biblical history, that the Philistines were that area. But a lot of people they're now basically that whole stigma of they're trying to kind of put these, say the Philistines were modern day Palestinians, right? Which is actually not true, right? Because when the Jews were expelled, and then the era of Islam came, right? That there was a kind of a whole Arabification, if that makes sense, right? For 1,500 years, right? And basically that whole area is Arab, right? At that time. So that is kind of where. So it's basically from 1947, right after that war, and there was kind of that land that was taken. From that time to 1967, there was martial law in Abu Ghosh, right? In extra Jerusalem, because we were literally on the war line, right? So basically, if you were under the age of 40, you basically had to report yourself, right, to the Israeli government. You had to pay taxes. You had to be kind of you had to pay certain attributes, right? So after that, basically, when they drew the lines, they cut out kind of East Jerusalem for the West Bank, and then West Jerusalem for Israel. And then that's kind of, there was a lot of people that fled their towns. There was a lot of people that, there was a lot of even massacres that happened, people that refused to, and they were forcibly, either killed or, whatever it may be. So, we decided like, hey, we're going to have more diplomatic relationships with their government and try to stay in this area. Right. So that's what we've done. And so, it still has the same last name. So.
That's awesome, man. And then, because I was told you before, like I'm trying to learn more about the situation.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see that, but I'm reading the 100 Years War on Palestine.
Yeah.
And they kind of talked about with the British mandate that they pretty much use colonialism, the same tactics, and that's
this is the whole thing, right? 10% of less than 10% of the population in that area, which is in that area of around 7 million people, is Jewish, right? And there's this whole argument, oh, this is our land, right? A lot of Zionists, they'll say, hey, this is our land, but a lot of Jews, Orthodox Jews, they're actually taking that same aspect, like, no, this is not the Zion. They say this is Zionist land, right? That whole idea of Zionism. At the end of the day, it's that the whole aspect, which is basically the idea I'm against, right? As Palestinians as a whole are against, right? Because it basically gives their land, the right to their land, right, to Jews, right? At the end of the day, when their population, very small amount of them are Jewish, right? So it just doesn't. And then kind of that whole argument is of Zionists saying, oh, Palestinians don't want Jews in their land, right? It's not that they don't want Jews in their land. And Jews have lived in Palestine for the longest time. There's Palestinian Jews, in fact, right? It's the fact of, the minority of the population, all of a sudden, there's, we just don't want war, right? And we want, we want, just like how when Lebanon was freed from the French, when Syria was freed from the French, when Saudi Arabia was freed from the English, right? We want that same courtesy. Right. For our land not to be carved up. Right.
And that's like this book is the first time I ever heard indigenous Palestinian.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Indigenous. You never hear that.
Yeah. Like Native Americans, right? When the US came, when the settlers came from the US, same thing. Did the indigenous population, right? And it's if you really look at it today, just like how America was made today, Israel is being made in the same exact way. Slowly, the people, they were telling them, oh, you cannot live here. You have to go live there. They were demolishing their areas of place, of where they would rest, right? And today, the same exact thing is happening in the West Bank over and over again. They have a tactic where, they actually, the Israeli army And the Palestinians, the West Bank, they actually call them the Israeli occupation forces, because if you really think about it, right, because they call themselves the Israeli Defense Forces, right? But if you really think about it, like the reason why we call them that, or the Palestinians that live there, is because that's how they feel day in and day out, right? They're walking out of their homes. There's a million checkpoints. They feel like they're trapped. They can't go anywhere. They can't go into and pray in the Aqsa without having to go through a million checkpoints and getting a permit just to go pray in the holiest place, right? Yeah. So, and even these people in Gaza, they're stuck in Gaza. There's no way they can enter Israel or enter. They can't leave, right? Yeah. So, these people, they're living, whether the Western media is saying this or not, they're living under constant occupation. I think a lot of people saw that and realized that after the last that last whole event that happened during the end of Ramadan, and they came into the mosque. They were saying, oh, there was a bunch of rocks in there, but nobody was ever attacked as well, right? So it's and then Hamas, which is deemed a terrorist group by the U.S. and Israel, and two other countries, I forgot their name, but they're deemed as terrorist group by 4 countries, right? Yeah. So if you really think about it, 4 countries are deeming this group as a terrorist group. Is this group 100% a terrorist group if only 4 countries are really kind of deeming this as a terrorist group, right? So that's also another aspect, because Hamas was actually it was elected by the people. It's literally the only free election that was given to the Palestinians in Gaza, right? Yeah. And this is the group that came to them, and then they're so quick to say, oh, this is a terrorist group, this came out of nowhere, right? But nobody's saying that this group is democratically elected, right? Yeah. So, it's a very interesting kind of the way the Western media portrays the whole situation, right? And what's actually happening on the floor, because going there as a Palestinian, as American, right? Because even though I am Palestinian, I don't have a Palestinian passport or anything like that. But going there as American and seeing that as American, it's like, man, it's these people are really living under constant fear that they're going to get a notice that they have to demolish their own home.
Dang.
In the West Bank, like that's personally happened to my father, where he had a real estate investment that he was doing, and all of a sudden he didn't even get a notice, and they just kind of demolished everything there, right? And what they do is they make you pay for the demolition as well.
And you paid to tear down your own home.
Yeah, and you pay. So basically, what they could do is just wake up one morning. They can say, hey, and they do this every single day, right? And this is one of the biggest tragedies that anybody can do, and it's one of the most horrible things that anybody can do in their lives, is wake up one day for a house that they spent their whole life in, right? And say, I have to, demolish it. So if you're really saying like, who is the oppressed and who's the oppressor here, man? I think it's pretty obvious, and I have plenty of Jewish friends. Yeah. I have plenty of, and this is not a knock to Judaism. It's not and people, the moment you speak against Israel, the moment they're so quick to say anti-Semite, right? Yeah. You're an anti-Semitist, right? Anti-Semitist, you're against Jews. Am I against, or am I against, that whole factor of that? So, that's the whole thing.
And I think that's part of the politicizing civil rights, or politicizing preserving life. Politicizing where you're just, to the naked eye, this is wrong. And it's like, because I won't pretend to know the details, or to the extent that or you've experienced, or your family experienced, but just seeing that picture of where things were from like 1936 till now, and seeing just the continual pretty much the cleanse, like it's pretty much a slow it's and you can see it, like it's just the numbers, it's data, it's public information, and that's the part where it's like that's not like beyond political, beyond what conservative and progressive, democratic, foreign geopolitical is like. Just look at the numbers, and you see you see what's been done, and you see what continues to be done. And that's part of where, as Americans, we have blind spots, because we don't really read, we don't really look past what we're told to believe, or what we're conditioned to believe. So it's like we have to take it upon ourselves to actually do research outside of our comfort zone, and that most people aren't willing to do that, unfortunately.
100%, man. And I it kind of makes sense for some topics, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is definitely a topic that every single person has to get educated about, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you think about it, Jerusalem is the holiest place in the world for three religions, right? Islam, Christianity, Judaism, right? For these three major Abrahamic religions, right? And it's part of the whole thing at the end of the day, right? It's just, it's that piece of the puzzle that throughout history has been fought over. Jerusalem is the most invaded city in history. And like, for example, when they say there's a part of my dad's side, right, where they say we actually came in the 1500s, 1400s to Palestine itself and to Jerusalem itself during the Turkish Empire. And we actually are from, I don't know if you know where Khabib's, have you ever heard of Khabib? Fighter, right? So he's from Dagestan. And they say that we're actually from a small little republic in Russia called Chechnya, which is a Muslim republic as well as Dagestan, and very close to Turkey. That's where they say we originally came from, right? So there's a lot of because of how many different invasions there were, there's like so many people from all over the world have eventually, became Palestinians, right? And lived all together and kind of identified this identity, just like how the Lebanese did, just like how the Jordanians did, just like how all these other, Syrians. And, that my thing here is like, okay, if anybody ever says, oh, Palestine never existed, right? And my comeback is to them, my rebuttal is, okay, if Palestine never existed, then how is Lebanon existing today, right? How is Syria existing? Egypt, right? All these countries, they have their own ethnic identity, right? And we were not able to solidify that into nationalism, once that time came, which is at the end of the day a tragedy, and if you go and you ask these Israeli, there's a few times Israeli officials said, not every people that want a country get it. Right. When this reporter was asking him a question about, well, why don't the Palestinians have their own state? Right. Everybody's saying about a 2-state solution. Why don't they have their own state? He's like, nope. This is the current prime minister. He said, nope. We allowed them to have their own state next to our beach, and now they're shooting rockets as a catastrophe. There's already another Palestinian state, which is Jordan. We're not going to have another Palestinian state from Jerusalem to Jordan, which is the entire West Bank, right? Which is totally against the UN partition rules, right? International law. There has to be a Palestinian state, but intentionally there's not, because they don't want it, right? So, yeah, but a lot of things, right?
That's man. And I think that's part of the educating each other. Like, because one thing I saw last year that was super positive that came out of 2020 was I saw the practice of each one teach one. Because I've always heard it my whole life, but nobody actually did it. Like, I never really saw it. And it's like until last year where I literally saw the young teaching the old teaching the young. It was amazing. And that's like, if one thing could be preserved to move forward, is that, where it's like each one actually teaches one. It's like you teach me about Palestinian and the history and what your family has gone through. It's like I teach you about culture and Black history and what my family. It's like we all teach each other. We all learn from each other. So I love that, man.
It's very interesting. I mean, the way the current modern American society has formed. I mean, there's more mixed babies and in America than there are any other parts of the world. They're saying in the next 100, 200 years that there's going to be an American race where it's like they're all going to look mixed. You know what I'm saying? That's what they're saying. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of speculation towards that. So, it's just very interesting to see, right, at the end of the day. And it's it's what everybody's moving towards, right? Nobody wants to, especially these a lot of younger people, they're over that, right? They're over all this racial and mix and this and that. They're the reason they grew up in America, right? The person sitting next to them, sitting all around them, they're all different races, and they could care less. Growing up, I could care less, right? Because that's who I am. I had my own opinions about certain things in the world, but with all honesty, if it really came down to it, I'm not affected as an American, right? I can have my opinion, I can stand for what I believe in. As an American, it's my right to do so, right? Just like how it's your right to do so as well, right? And I think a big aspect is kind of understanding that, yes, we have the right to speak. And I think that's the really cool aspect, because there's some countries in the world where, you speak out against anybody, boom, you're in jail, right? So God knows what's happening to you.
Yeah. And that's where, like, there's one group I attend, and people are from Malaysia, and you don't protest in there with their government, it's like, and that is one of the strong points of our Constitution, is that we can protest and it's like and go against the things that that hurt our neighborhoods. And I would say this, because I grew up the same way, as far as where, like, even in college, I was friends with everybody, show love to everybody. And I remember one of my friends say, racism wouldn't exist, or race wouldn't exist if we didn't talk about it. And he would always say that. And the only issue with that is, like, everybody wants to be over it. Nobody wants to deal with this. But there's people that make decisions based on race. It's like if we don't pay attention to what moves are being done, just like I'm with an organization downtown Crenshaw, is like with the Black neighborhood, then Black and brown neighborhoods will continue to be displaced. And it's like, so that's the thing where it's like, it's almost like we're forced to still pay attention and see what's happening on a massive scale. But as far as just people in general, we are cool with everybody. It's like, we're very, all of us are diverse, and we can't, the whole mixed babies is like, we're all like we're all mixed, but it's like, but we still have to pay attention to what's being dictated to us and make sure this is still a democracy and not a dictatorship.
100%. You're 100% right. I mean, at the end of the day, like, in America, some of the biggest the biggest kind of movements have been happening, right? And I think, as much as a lot of people want to say, the whole kind of Trump era, right? I think the Trump era, with all honesty, as much as you say, kind of pushed America backwards in that aspect. Those 4 years, I would say. There was a lot of, people, and especially kind of white people, right? Plain and simple, is like saying, kind of more going more towards that, and liking the fact of, that they're able to kind of, show that they are kind of the ruling aspect of America, right? Rather than, with the Joe Biden's message, which, everybody's equal, right? And he has a woman as his vice president, right? A Black woman as his vice president, right? And he has more than eight Middle East people from Middle Eastern descent in his cabinet, right? So it's very interesting, the whole kind of shift, and how people wanted that too, right? At the end of the day, right? People did not. It was very evident that people were over that, right? People did not want to have that aspect of hate anymore, right? They were tired of it, and
it's exhausting. Yeah,
because it sucks, Like, for example, right? There's a lot of people out there, I even notice this in the Middle Eastern community, right? Fathers, right, where their daughter or their son will come to them, hey, I want to marry this woman, right? And just Middle Eastern fathers, just like how a lot of people from their own countries, whether it's in Europe or China, or they want their children to marry in that kind of specific, but just like how when they kind of get that, right? They're like, I don't want to know what to do, because this is but at the end of the day, it's very clear, right? They it's easy for them. It's either for somebody to, marry somebody that, who is, let's say, Chinese, right? And they live in China, right? It's very easy, but, at the end of the day, it's not what it is of how they grew up, and they really have to realize that, right? Times are definitely changing.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And that's where it's like just being open to change in a way where it's not a threat. Like, like with all things. It's like with technology, with election cycles. It's like I remember thinking to myself, even with everything last year, is like progress is not zero sum. It's like if the Black community makes progress, it doesn't take away from affluent communities, from other communities. It adds, like say Downtown Crenshaw purchases their mall and creates community wealth. It makes the communities around the area, the cities around the area, even stronger. So it's not a negative. It's not a take away from other communities. It's a contribute and add even more wealth to surrounding communities. So that's the part where that's the thing where I feel like it becomes political.
Yeah.
And they create a us versus them, and it's like it's not about that.
It's not.
Yeah. So
how can we all come together? How will we push? As much as I love, I really appreciate where I come from, right? Really respect my heritage, right? At the end of the day, I'm an American, right? I want to see my country where I was born in, what I represent at the end of the day first. I want to see, it, grow and consistently move forward, and and not be held back by the current societal norms, right? And be pushed into that new generation. So this is Generation Pros. I mean,
I like it. All ties back together, man. All ties back together. Man. And then I love that. And where, like, so with Generation Pros, like, where can people find you, and if people want to work with you, how do they go about like reaching out to you?
Yeah, just visit our website. You can book a demo with us straight from the website. You book a demo. We talk. We show you exactly what we're all about. We demo you our dashboard, and we are. If you like it from there, we can start working. So and all the prices are on the website as well. Plain and simple, not hiding anything. And that's how it is. I'm a big fan of just give me what the prices are, right?
Yes.
Not like kind of, let me quote you, let me go through an evaluation and all that based on your needs, right? Hey, this is what we do. This is what we do. This is how much it costs. You want it, yes or no, right? So that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Okay. Well, man, it's a pleasure chatting with you and having this conversation. I'm so glad we got to have it, and thank you also for that our partnership.
Yes,
and the work, man. I really enjoy working with Generation Pros and your company, the people that you have on board. So look forward to continuing to do this work.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you for bringing me on today. It's a pleasure to work with you as well. And I look forward to plenty of good work in the future and perhaps talking again very soon. Who knows?
Sounds good, man. Sounds good. Awesome.
All right.
Awesome. All right, man.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. So this has been an episode of Fight the Funk podcast. Thank you all for joining me. And that is Ibrahim and from Generation Pros. And see you next time. I'm Magic with 2 A's, Fight the Funk podcast. Till next time. Deuces.